Okay, so this is going to show you how to create those sort of dense ivy-based trunked trees where they've got the winter branches, no foliage, but you've got that really dense ivy. So what I've done is I've wet the paper. I'm going to come in with some sepia and start to create a tree. So this is into wet, the sepia is really thick, I'm using a number 6. I'm not going to come too high. I'm just going to start to blend this out. So we're going to get that dense foliage. If I add a little bit of water to that sepia so it's not quite as strong, I'm just going to use this one colour. I'm going to blend this out. So you get all that ivy that's coming around the trunk. And this is what I'm creating now into the wet. If I twizzle around, I'm going to go from around number 6 to a line writer. It needs to be damp. I don't necessarily need paint in it, so there's plenty of paint on here. And I'm going to start to come through and create some branches. Often these trees are oak type trees. So this is all still nicely damp and we're just working with it at this stage. I'm going to pop a little bit of the paint onto the brush now. I'm going to start to flick out. So this is going to be a knotty branch here. So you can have these lighter bits happening and dabble some in, and you're going to have some darker branches coming through. So this is with the sepia. It's all going to be done with sepia. Pick up some thicker sepia onto my round number 6 and I can bring through these branches. It's now starting to dry a little bit, so this is a perfect time to start to just dab in. And create that ivy wrapped around the trunk effect. Just going to start to bring out some branches from the bigger branches. Some nice little flicks. This thicker paint now, it's going to look darker. There's still bits that are damp, so that tends to work quite nicely at creating this uneven effect, which is what you want to give atmosphere to your pictures. And this is all with one colour. That's all you need. So twizzle back round now. So I paint that way because it's easier to paint to a point if I'm that way. Just lay this nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to come in with around number 6 and a little bit of sepia. I'm going to hold the brush quite flat and catch the surface of the paper. So this is called dry brushing. I'm holding my brush really flat, look, catching the surface of the paper. It's called dry brushing, but actually your brushes tends to be quite wet. And it's the texture you're catching. So this is a rough paper. A rough and a knot will always catch texture. A smooth is a lot harder. Got some beautiful things happening down here. And part of watercolour is letting it do what it wants to do and not going into it too much. So I'm just going to add a few little bits towards this bottom edge but not too much. I'm going to leave that bit, leave this lovely soft bottomed edge. In fact, I'm going to just bring some flicky bits for grasses either side. And it's about looking where you might want some more dark. So this is now just slightly damp in places, dry in others, and I'm bringing the sepia through to them, creating an extra layer. So it's adding more and more depth, all with that one shade of paint. It's a beautiful and effective way to create trees. I'm just going to dabble in a little bit more of the ivy. If I give my brush a little bit of a rinse, this is my round number 6, and just touch in either side. I don't want to hit this bit really that I've created because I really like that. And just create a little bit of shadow that way. And then if I want to take a little bit of light out of the trunk, it's just a case of a damp brush. Just use a bit of tissue and a damp brush. Now this is a Bockingford, so it's a wood pulp paper, so it should just lift really quite easily, this colour. I should just be able to lift a little bit of light out. It's nice and effective. Just make sure your brush isn't too wet. If it's too wet, then it will just watermark it. So it's got to be damp, just enough to move the paint, but not too wet. Okay, I'll dry that one off. So that's nicely dry now, and so I can lift out a few little bits of light with some kitchen towel if I want to dab any more out. If I want to break up an area, so this one has gone a little bit wet, I can just dab through and just break it up a little bit. I don't need to break it up hugely, but there's a big chunk here. It could be a big bird's nest there that just, if I just lift it a little bit, just got to agitate the surface a little bit more. So just rubbing with the damp brush just to break through it. There we go, that's a little bit better. The other way is to take a bit more of the colour in so you get some darker patches. So if I just bring a little bit more through, I know it sounds daft, but just to break that up so I've got darker areas and tonally some lighter areas, that will work much better. And there we go, we've got a beautiful winter tree, just how you see them at this time of year when the leaves have all dropped but the ivy is still growing through. And it's really effective and atmospheric as well.